Hi guys, today I'm talking to you about hybrid gimbals. Now you may have seen a video I made recently about why I struggle with smartphone gimbals, particularly when it comes to narrative filmmaking. If you want to use lenses, counterweights, that kind of stuff, it can be a real struggle to get it to even hold it, let alone to get smooth shots with it. Also, just using them on any kind of tracking shot can be really tricky when it should be very simple. The way I've resolved this, or I hope to have resolved it anyway, is by buying a hybrid gimbal. Specifically, a Weebill S. I'm so excited for this. I want to find out in this video, is it overkill for a smartphone or is it an amazing choice for a smartphone? Now it's meant for DSLR cameras, so it's meant for a much heavier payload, but can it work and what kind of shots can we get with this? Let's take a look. So this is the Weebill S gimbal. As you can see, it's big, but it's not a huge amount bigger than the Osmo Mobile 3 gimbal that I use. So if you're using a regular smartphone gimbal, this isn't a huge step up in size, but it is a fair bit heavier than a regular smartphone gimbal. It weighs 926 grams, just over 2 pounds. So it's got a bit of weight to it, but that's really good because when you're using a smartphone gimbal, it's almost so light it can make it harder to get a smooth shot because it feels like you're almost holding a feather. With this, it feels a bit more stable even just from the weight. Now what's really impressive about this, whilst it weighs 926 grams, it can actually hold as a payload up to 3,000 grams, 3 kilograms. It's an insane payload for this, so a smartphone might seem a bit overkill for this, but when you want to add accessories and things like that, this can really come into its own and really help you get the kind of shots that you need. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Now the price of this gimbal is about £300 to 320. I actually got this on eBay for 225 with a cheeky bid at the last minute. I saw it was going for 200, so I just bid an extra £5, and to my surprise I actually won it. Well, I say won it, I'm paying for it, but I got it. And it also came with a small rig hand grip, so I can use this here as well as having the tripod at the bottom. So not a bad deal. I can't normally afford these kind of things, but I'd save up a bit of money from things I'd sold when I moved flat with my girlfriend. So I was able to purchase this 3-axis gimbal, but there's 6 different points that you need to balance essentially, including the release plate and the different aspects of that. But if you want to use a balancing via the Zone Play app rather than on the screen here with the gimbal, which I personally prefer, then you can use the Zone Play app to do that. It's a bit tricky. You have to lie the gimbal on the ground or on something flat, and then you have to change the different axes, different positions, and then it will checkpoint you through step by step until it tells you that it's balanced. I prefer to do it via the gimbal because you can feel the gears changing as well. You want the gear strength to be really low because you're only using a smartphone with a few accessories rather than a big DSLR with a huge lens, something like that. But I think it's relatively simple once you know what you're doing. It does take a long time to balance, but you've got the app as well to use if you want to do that. So what about the different modes that you can get on the Weebill S? Well, the first one is pan follow, which is the one that you'll start off with when you turn the gimbal on. So you get a nice smooth pan, really easy to get that as well. It's so much easier than the Osmo Mobile 3 gimbal, I have to say. With the gimbal on the Osmo Mobile 3, you have to really kind of pose yourself, get your legs spread, all that kind of stuff. If you're doing tracking shots, you need to do the ninja walk as much as you can. This gimbal makes everything much easier. The next mode is lock mode, so your phone stays in exactly the same position no matter what you do with the gimbal. So I can move this and the phone will stay in exactly the same position no matter how I move the gimbal. So that's the second mode. The next mode is go mode. So you tap and hold the go mode on the button that's on the side of the gimbal here, and then you can move it much quicker. So it's like sport mode for the Osmo Mobile 3. You can move it really quick and quite robustly as well. Follow mode, as you can imagine, follows your movement of what you're doing. It follows you down, tilting upwards and downwards, as well as the pan mode. One of the most exciting things about this gimbal is it can do a POV mode, which essentially can turn your camera sideways. So if I turn the button on POV here, you'll see that I can then turn the gimbal and the phone turns with it, which is really exciting to do. I'm not sure how I'd implement this in a film yet, but it can get you some really cool trippy shots, you know, like Inception kind of shots. Now, I am having trouble with balancing this for the other modes, because it's just a phone, it's quite hard to get this to balance on this gimbal, so I need to add more weight to it. I just got to figure that out and how I'm going to do that. So when you go to vortex mode, this thing freaks out. With just the phone and lens and the adapter, it freaks the hell out when you go into vortex mode, and I'll put it close so you can hear the vibrations as well. You can hear that, it starts to freak out. So I then have to turn that off and readjust the phone and the setup, because otherwise it just freaks the hell out when I go into vortex mode because the weight just isn't enough. I'm hoping to get a B-script cage, as I mentioned in the video before, but that is a mode that I can't yet do at the moment, but everything else I can do with this gimbal. You can also do underslung, which is basically not a mode as such, but if you haven't got a small rig hand grip like this, you can just use the tripod and put it here instead. You can then get nice low shots tracking shots to the ground, that kind of thing, much easier than if you've got a gimbal. You can do it, as I say, with the Osmo Mobile 3, but when you're adding weights, lenses, that kind of stuff, it really struggles with it. Whereas a hybrid gimbal like this really excels in this kind of area. And you can get really nice smooth shots with next to no effort. I barely have to do the ninja walk type thing at all. I can just kind of stroll with it fairly smoothly. I can get nice tracking shots along the ground like that. Now, another positive about using a hybrid gimbal like the Weebill S is that you can really cheat crane shots and jib shots very easily. You can do that with a smartphone gimbal using a monopod, and you could use a monopod with this. But just a gimbal on its own, when it's a hybrid, has enough power to really control the camera nice and smoothly, and you really don't have to do a huge amount to get that. As I'm later on in the video now and working with this, I've realized that if you press L to lock, it then gives you the underslung mode nice and easy via a little vibration on the way to get there. So this is how you can do a jib shot. You line up the camera using pan follow to where you want it to. Then when you got it where you want it, you press the switch down to make it go into lock mode so the camera stays in one position. And then you just bring it down nice and low, hit record, and you just go nice and keep the handle position nice all the way up, and you get a really nice jib shot or crane shot. Now I'm going to show you some really simple shots I just got out on the fly just now with this hybrid gimbal Weebill S, my iPhone 8 and Moondog Labs anamorphic lens with polarizer filter and ND filter. There is no post stabilization in any of these shots. I really wanted to show what you can do with just this without any post editing as well. So you'll be pretty surprised at how smooth the shots came out for this. Let's take a look. Now, as I said, weight is an issue with this gimbal in some modes. The vortex mode is really tricky, so that's something you have to bear in mind with gimbals, because a phone, if you're getting a hybrid gimbal, is quite light for a hybrid gimbal, so you want to get a cage or something on it to add some more weight to it, so the gimbal recognises it a lot more as a regular camera. Now, on editing this video, I realised I didn't mention something that's really important to know. With smartphone gimbals, generally you charge straight from the handle of the gimbal into a plug socket, but with the Weebill S, the batteries are actually located at the back and underneath the main center point of the gimbal here. So you end up sliding this little cap out like that. You've actually got the batteries inside, so you just pop them out and then you simply put them inside this, which comes with the gimbal, a little charger pack here, and you just plug that into a plug socket, like a spare one you'd have for your iPhone, that kind of thing, into the port here, and you just charge up the batteries that way. It generally takes about 2.5 hours or so to get these pretty much fully charged so you can use them, but you do get a long time usage out of the gimbal. If you're not pushing the gears too much, then you are looking at about probably 8 to 10 hours realistically with the gimbal. This is an amazing gimbal. It takes a lot of practice to get balancing properly. I have to admit, it did take me quite a long time. I ended up watching about 5, 6, 7 videos on YouTube and reading instructions trying to get this balanced. But once you do, it's a really great gimbal, and you can start to get shots that you just can't get with a regular smartphone gimbal, and certainly not with the amount of effort it takes with a smartphone gimbal. I know from a lot of experience that using a smartphone gimbal really can make it a hard time for you when you want to get just some simple shots with a lens on top. This eliminates all that worry. Yes, it is 3 times the price, so it's not going to be for everyone. But if you can afford it and you want to make real professional level filmmaking and narrative films, or you're doing wedding videos, that kind of stuff, I know a lot of people do with phones now, this is a really great option. I'll leave a link in the description below as well if you want to check it out. Let me know in the comments down below if you want to see how I set up this phone specifically once I got really used to it, in case you want to buy this. I wanted to do this video really as a first impressions of having a smartphone with a hybrid gimbal rather than a smartphone gimbal, and let you guys know the differences between those two gimbals, specifically in the first impressions and how to use them. So if you want to learn about how to get crane and jib shots with a smartphone, there will be a video for that right here, I think. And if there's a video you want to watch on Filmic Pro and learn how to use that, which is what I use for all my videos and short films that I make as well, that'll be in one of these sides as well for you to check out the playlist for my Filmic Pro tutorials. In the meantime, thanks for watching. If you've got any questions, any tips for using a hybrid gimbal, specifically Weebill S with a phone, let me know in the comments down below. I'll be really interested to hear your comments and feedback as well. So see you on the next one. Take care. Bye bye.